This is Jim Prusak from the Pain PT, and I'm bringing today a very special guest with me to talk Dr. Sarno and the TMS and the healing process. I have here with me today Joe Christie, fellow San Diego resident. I've known Joe for a while now. We've talked a lot of shop about Dr. Sarno, TMS, and we put on some stuff here locally in San Diego for the community to try to get the word out about Dr. Sarno. So I want to bring Joe here today because he's got an amazing story to share of his own recovery, and I want him to talk about that and also about what he's doing now with Dr. Sarno. So Joe, nice to see you today. How's it going?
Hello, Jim. And let's be clear. Am I coming in nice and smooth for you?
Coming in great.
Great. On this end, you're a little frozen. So I'm looking at a frozen, beautiful face, but I'm sure it'll start moving again pretty soon, unless that's how this works. And hello, everybody. Yeah, Jim. You know, we're actually friends now. So
we were friends, right?
Like we've mentioned, we're well past that. We're good friends. I love Jim. So let's not sell us short, Jim.
I won't do that.
No, thanks for having me on. I follow you. You put out amazing videos. I love your website. So I'm happy to be on.
Awesome. Great. And maybe just because people don't know you, maybe let me start and share how how you came to Dr. Sarno's work, what you're going through, and then maybe just bring us through, how you took his work and what it did for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And hopefully some of the things resonate with people out there. If you're watching, you're still going through pain. I've been there. It's terrible, but I can tell you there's a way to get out of it if you follow some guidelines that are outside of probably what you've ever heard before, it's phenomenal. So hopefully some of this helps and something resonates, and even if it doesn't, I know it's always helpful to be part of the healing process for everybody to hear each other's story. So mine was pretty standard, but pretty wild at the same time. But I just found that coming out of college, I got married, I had a child, my life was going great, but I started to get all these physical disorders. Actually, the first thing I got was, I guess you could call it like an immune disorder, Crohn's disease. And I could talk a little bit more about that, which I don't have anymore, but I could talk a little bit more about that later. But what really brought me to Sarno at the time was I had everything managed, things were going well, but then one day I was going up for a layup in basketball, and I'd always had some slight back problems, but this time my back did that thing where it went out. Like I felt something immediately, it hurt. I went to the floor and I was like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. So I basically got myself up off the floor, was doing that painful walk to the car, sat down, and went home and just was wondering what was going on. I had never experienced that before. So, but love to surf. I'm really active. My kids, young. I wanted to get back into everything. So I was bound and determined. I have that personality. I was bound and determined to overcome this. I got to get better so I can get back out in the water. I hate this pain. So I immediately started just going down the list, like, okay, what can I do to get better? Seeing physicians, physical therapists, I was doing everything as fast as you could to try to get rid of this. And the whole time I was walking around in constant pain, basically at a 45-degree angle. And just getting through life, but just trying the next thing. Oh, okay, maybe physical therapy, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this doctor will know something, maybe this medicine will help. Chiropractor, everything. I was trying everything. And as a matter of fact, I was getting worse. And
how long did you go through that process with all these other treatments?
It was probably like a 9-month time frame. Okay. And maybe a little longer. And all along this time, about maybe like 5 months in, 6 months in, I knew somebody who was a teacher at my daughter's school, but who was kind of like the dean. He was a younger guy like me, surfer too, he happened to be, but really intelligent guy. And he's like, you got to read this book by a guy named Dr. John Sarno. And I was right in the middle of everything else. Oh yeah, dude, thanks so much. That's awesome. I'll definitely, check it out. But then I completely forgot about it. And then I'm doing everything else, this, that. And then about 3 months later, he was like, I'm telling you, read this book by Dr. John Sarno. Okay. I had another physical therapist I think I wanted to see. The doctor told me I had a herniated disc, but don't get surgery and this and that. So finally, I pretty much hit rock bottom. Nothing was working. I was getting worse. And then I had a trip for work to go to Hawaii, which isn't too bad, to work a conference. But there's also was going to be some waves there for a surfing opportunity. So I'm like, all right, I'm bringing my board because I can't not surf, but I'm also going to start this book. So I got this book called Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. And as I started reading it on the plane, I'm like, oh my goodness, this totally makes sense to me. Again, I think after trying everything else, which is kind of common, you need to kind of hit that point where, okay, I'm ready for something new. So I got to that point, started reading this book, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this resonates with me, and it gives me hope, because at that point I was out of hope. So read this thing, and as you'll see if you ever read Dr. Sarno's work or visit someone like yourself, you'll see that actually doing almost everything the opposite of what you've been told and getting this new diagnosis makes all the difference in the world. So as you'll get into more details, I actually started surfing the moment I got there. No matter what, it hurt, but I was starting to say, okay, I'm not afraid that something's actually physically wrong anymore. This is what I think is going on.
So you believe that once you read, you really took it on and say, I know this is true. I believe this.
And I got very lucky, as the universe can work. While I'm at that conference, which is a traditional medical conference, which is the industry I'm in, I sit in on certain talks. And I went into this one talk just randomly, and I think it was on pain or something. And the young lady physician giving the talk, without saying the name of Dr. Sarno, without telling them exactly what was going on, but because there's such a crisis in the pain care industry, she was telling Dr. Sarno's type story and diagnosis and therapy. And I nearly fell off my chair, and I really fell off my chair because I wasn't 100% sure, because even the doctors tend to beat around the bush a little bit as they're trying to introduce this stuff, because pain care is so ineffective most of the time. I went up to her afterwards and I'm like, hello, doc, could you recommend a book to me that I might learn more about this? And she's like, you should really read this book by Dr. John Sarno about healing back pain.
Oh, man.
And right then I was like, what is going on? And then her friend, who is in nuclear medicine, which is some sort of imaging technique, also said, oh my gosh, yeah, read this book. But they were like, it's like this little underground little deal.
Yeah, that's amazing. What, like, almost like a confirmation that
like it was like, like the universe, okay. But even after all that, so you start reading the book, you start following along, surfing every day. I walk down to the beach at like a 45-degree angle, get in the water. When I would surf a little bit, I'd still definitely feel it. It would affect my surfing a little bit, but it wouldn't hurt as much. But then when I would get out of the water immediately, it was like carrying 1,000 pounds back up to the room, just like. So I even warned people, like, even as much as all those things aligned and I had hit rock bottom, and about a week in after doing all this, I had a crisis of faith. Is that what they call it? I was starting to go, is this really possible? And he explains in the book, like, don't give up. It takes some time. Some people get immediate results. Some people it takes longer. Some people it takes a lot longer. But I almost gave up at like week 1. But because I didn't have any other options, because I had been given some supportive counseling and encouragement and some other support items, which, by the way, I can talk about a little bit more later, the program I put together, they kind of help with that. I just stuck with it. And then I won't give the exact time frame because everyone's different. So if you get into this, I want you to just not have any unique expectations. But I will tell you, because I didn't give up, one day I can remember the day waking up and going, oh my gosh, my back is like feeling better for the first time. Not perfect, definitely pain, but it was a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh my God, like, all right, I'm on the right path. And then it was just a journey, sticking with what he did, getting with my back was probably at about a 9, let's just say a 9 pain. And through reading his work and some of that, and I got it down to maybe like a 2 or maybe like a 3. And then the same individual who originally recommended to me that book said, well, if you've plateaued, you can go see someone, a therapist in this area, to reinforce the diagnosis. And then again, it tells your brain it's okay, it's safe, like you talk a lot about. And then I just proceeded, and now I have no back pain at all. It's been many, many years since I've had any back pain, really, of any sort of consequence at all. So I don't even think about it anymore. And I was bad. I was going through everything that 80% of people have back pain in their lives in America now. Sometime in their life, I was going through all that. It's terrible. So.
Yeah, amazing. And so I know the listeners are going to want to know, well, because everybody shares a different sort of formula for what worked for them.
Yeah.
It's work, and people have taken different pieces. What was it for you that really made it work? You said the persistent, you kept at it, you didn't give up.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you did with Sarno's approach, what were you doing day in and day out?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What I really did initially was just, that book was my little Bible, my little guiding light. I would just read it, reread it. On the first page, which a lot of even people miss, is he writes 3 do's and 3 don'ts. That just says, these are the things to think about, 3 things and do, 3 things you do, 3 things. So every day, I would constantly remind myself that. I read the book, and then when I was done with that, I reread the book. And I just used that as my guiding light. And I was noticing progress. And then another thing that happens is, that I think people will appreciate, is it's not just getting better with the pain. You start realizing there's this bigger phenomenon inside of you that's going on, and you start really learning more about yourself psychologically and how you work and things like that. So it's really put me on this long path of healing on multiple different levels. And that definitely happens, right? Like, sure, maybe back pain goes away, something else pops up, and now you have this kind of core fundamental understanding of things that you build upon, depending on what now you're working on next, personally, physically, whatnot, and all is combined. And that's the beautiful part. But I kept on that book, and then that's basically what I did.
Did you, just to follow on to that, did you do any kind of journaling or workbooks like that, or did you mainly just read and then reinforce through your mind to overcome the fear?
At the time, I think I mainly just read the book and just changed everything that I had been doing before for my back, doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Making sure I was exercising, making sure I was doing this, maybe making sure I was telling my brain that, and I was just working on that. And then before and then since, there's been times where I have journaled that's been very helpful in different ways, as, like I said, kind of building on like a Dr. John Sarno foundation. So, like even he mentions that journaling can be of additional benefit. He talks about certain things that can be of additional benefit, but the book is the core thing, and some support, just support right around that is great. And then you go from there.
And it's good because and we've talked about this before off air, I guess, about how you really kept it simple and stayed with Dr. Sarno's original approach and not get too distracted with other things, right? That book was your Bible, like you said, and you kept coming back to it, kept rewiring your brain, and that was it. And it turned a corner for you.
That was the key. I didn't know much more beyond that at the time. So it was really like, this is the book. This is it. Just follow this, follow this, follow this. So I kept it simple. And and then that in time worked for me because I just didn't have any other options, and I just really wanted to get better.
And then did you take the same approach with the Crohn's disease? Was that before or after the back pain? Can't remember.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal story, to be honest. And I know this one's a little bit more. Let me just tell the story. So, like I said, Sarno builds his foundation. Down the line, after I made considerable progress, I saw a physician to help me with, just to reaffirm the diagnosis, maybe give me some other tools to use. And I think by that time, actually, there was a journal that he had suggested that was kind of guided through that process. So, like I said, I started to build upon that, and then I started to learn more and more. And I think this is the key. If people are still listening to my story, I got to a point where I realized for the first time that I had control over my health destiny, where I was getting hit with so many different things, the Crohn's, the back pain, this and that. I was always just waiting for the next shoe to drop. And no matter what it was, like I would have this diet, or I would be able to do this. Like I read so many things about all the little different things. So when the next shoe dropped, then I would do this. So like for my Crohn's, I was on this macrobiotic diet, which was helpful. It's less stressful on the system and this and that. But it never was really gone. I was on medicine, immunosuppressants. And then the whole back thing happened. And I gained this kind of empowerment over my health and continued to kind of work on things and learn about myself. And then I was in my room at my house, in my bedroom upstairs. It was maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I'd been on a special diet and just really still struggling with that. And I said, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning. I'm like, what if this is just like back pain? Like all the same mechanisms are happening, and I'm doing everything the opposite for this that I should be doing.
Yeah.
So I literally looked in the mirror and I'm like, I get sick because of this anger that I have. And then when I really do this with the anger, I really get sick. I just made all these connections in like a split moment. And I'm like, you got this. And this doesn't work every time, but for this particular one, I was like, you got this. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, that's it. You're not getting sick again. You're getting off your medicine. And that night, for the first time, I went and I ate pizza. I drank beer. I hung out with my friends, and I didn't worry about it. And I can tell you, and this was after being in the hospital, going to the emergency room every couple of months, just getting sick, throwing up all the time. I never got sick again. I just basically never got sick again.
Yeah, you know what? And I think about that, like, what is that? It's a radical shift in your brain. Like you said, 180 degrees opposite of what you were doing. You did it for the back pain. You had confidence from that. And you made the connections, like you said, aha moment. And then your conviction with your belief, right? That's the key. But it's hard for some people to sometimes get that aha, that's it. And they're 100%, I'm not going back, right?
Yeah.
But that's how I think you got that fast shift. And you went for it. Hey, I'm eating pizza. I'm going to have a beer.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time you had a beer and pizza before that?
Yeah, no, it was wild. I was doing everything under the sun, the opposite. I was having no pizza. I was having no beer. I wasn't really going out. Every meal was like planned and what I was going to eat and was I going to get sick and how was I going to feel and et cetera. And it was crazy. Now, I think I want to make an interesting point too is a lot of people say, well, to get over my back pain and maybe this Crohn's, do I have to become some sort of Zen master? Trust me, I still have worked on things that have been like that make me angry or stressed or this, but all those same emotions, and whether there, as Sarno talks about, there may be kind of a difference between the two anyway, but I still have all these same emotional things that I deal with.
Yeah.
I just don't have the pain and the Crohn's and stuff anymore, So you can get rid of things physically that are slowing you down, but you'll always need to work on yourself internally for, forever, or whatnot. So I made tremendous progress in that regard, but the back pain and the Crohn's were gone